the Duchess of Sussex on Sunday posted this photo. So it shows Prince Harry. He's got Lilibet on his shoulders. He's holding hands with Archie. All you can see is their backs, obviously not their faces, not their features, and they're walking away from the camera. It's as if it's an action shot, although it's a picture. Many people think that it symbolises the Prince and his family turning their backs on the UK and just walking away from us. Some people have even described it as Meghan and Harry giving the middle finger to Harry's family and all of us here in the United Kingdom. So do you think this picture makes it even harder for the family to reconcile? Or could they possibly get back into the good graces of the royal family? Do get your calls in now, 0207 862 2222. Let's start with you, Lynn. You've had a good chance to look at those backs turned on all of us. Do you feel that that's what the signal is?
I do think so. For the simple fact of the things that Harry said recently, that he doesn't think it will be tenable for him to even come back to the UK. Him and his family feel unsafe. I hate to assume this, but I think a small part of me wants to believe that, you know, Meghan has won in a sort of way, because she's always wanted to kind of have her family back in the US, and it's more like he's on my side instead of the family side. That's obviously an assumption, but that's what I'm getting from this.
So that picture alone, if that picture could speak 1,000 words, and they're supposed to be able to do so, what's that picture saying to you?
Essentially what you said, you know, turning our backs on the UK. The UK has not done, or the courts, the family has not done what we essentially want them to do. But, you know, how can they, if there's certain conversations that happen where Harry's saying, you know, I don't feel safe, and suggesting about his father, we don't know how long he's got left. Those are very personal, private things that if he knows something, the rest of us don't know. I don't think he should have said something like that. So there's always this conversation with Harry saying certain things that can upset any family, about his brother, about his father, you know, how the late Queen was treated, and his grandfather. And then he comes back and acts a little bit like the victim, you know, why are my family doing this to me? So again, that picture does denote to me turning the back on the UK.
Right, now, Siobhan, your whole career is a mixture of pictures and words and pictures. You choose a particular picture to send a really punchy message before your readers actually need to open the magazines that you are editor-in-chief of. They are attracted by the pictures. So let's imagine you were putting that picture on the cover of one of your magazines. What would you be saying?
Oh, I'd literally be saying walking away.
Walking away.
That would be the only words that I'd have on that picture. But I think the problem with Harry is family feuds happen. I think he needs to, whether it's metaphorically or physically, stop now, be quiet. That I think the best way, the least said, soonest mended. And I think he probably is upset. I suspect, and like you say, I have no idea, that he has had no contact with his father, that he doesn't know, and he probably is upset because he does tend to wear his heart on his sleeve all the time, say way too much. He just needs to stop. He needs to be quiet. Otherwise, there probably is no way back.
But if you look at the timeline of just the last few days, so Friday night he gives the interview. It was meant to be about 6-7 minutes long. He gives a 30-minute interview. Saturday, the beep hits the fan. There are repercussions all over the world. The world ignites. Lots of people saying, oh, my God, he says he wants reconciliation. This interview's making that completely impossible. Sunday, what does Meghan do? She posts that picture. Now, she didn't have to post any picture. It's not as if the world was waiting for the Sussexes to say more, to do more. We needed more. We didn't need any more. In fact, as you just said, we would have been much happier with less. But no, the picture comes out, and suddenly there's even more fuel to the fire, isn't there? More to say, more to wonder. What's the picture doing? Is it a slap in the face? Why did she release it that night? It's got nothing to do with jam. She's not trying to sell it. What the hell was the point of it? You know, there's all of that going on. Let's kick off with Lottie, who's on the line in Yorkshire. Hello, Lottie. Good to have you on. What do you think?
Hi, thanks so much for having me on.
Pleasure.
I think that for Harry and Meghan, I think that there is potential, especially for Harry, to come back into the fold within the UK, but I think it's going to take a long time. I feel like they have monetised their story to a degree which hasn't gone down very well in the British public. It's very American kind of approach to things, and I think that they probably need to separate themselves from that a bit. And you know, he's got a really hard job. He's up against the romanticised and very publicised kind of William and Kate story. It's very difficult for him to be himself. I think that's what's very clearly visible.
When you say he's up against the romanticised and publicised William and Kate story, what do you mean by that? In what way is it romanticised, and in what way do you think theirs is more publicised than his? After all, he sold millions and millions of copies of his book Spare. They had a great success on Netflix with the documentary about themselves and their life stories. So you would say that their story is much more publicised and a great deal more romanticised than William and Kate's, couldn't you?
I think that there is a big PR machine behind the royal family, and rightly so, and they need to be protected. I think when Harry departed, though, all of that disappeared and he became the own author of his story. And I think when you're in the royal family, that doesn't sometimes help. You know, we've seen other members of the royal family where they've tried to author their own story and it's been disastrous. I think they do need a level of protection, and especially because they have the next generation there as well. You know, they have 2 children that are part of our culture, our society.
What would you say that Meghan's picture was signalling to you when you saw it? What's she trying to say, do you think?
I think it's just content. I think that she was just pushing out another image of her husband, who I think she does love, and her children. I'm not reading too much into it.
All right, lovely to talk to you. Thanks, Lottie. Let's go to Joyce. Joyce, hi, you're in London. You're feeling very adamant that Prince Harry's been badly treated.
Oh, yes, I am.
What would you like to say about it, Joyce?
Well, I think it's very unfair the way he's been treated, because the fact that the unhappiness he's had through his life with the experience of his mother, the king is there happily married to the woman he loves. What Harry is doing, he's protecting his family and his wife and his own feeling. And I feel very strongly about all this criticism against Harry and Meghan, right? Because to me, what makes you happy is what you do. And there's other people within the royal family, which I know my line, so to speak, that there's allegations that has been made that to a certain extent has even ended up in the court. And yet those people are still there, being part of the family and not being looked down on. So I don't think that the king has behaved appropriately to his son. He needs to think of how happy he is.
Let's see whether Lynn agrees with you. Do you think it's true? Joyce feels the king hasn't behaved appropriately to Harry. Do you think that's true?
Well, I think it's quite difficult from the King's point of view, Joyce, because if he does want to make amends with his family, which he's suggesting, why would he release a book with such intimate things and, you know, essentially being extremely negative towards his brother? You said that someone who says things makes them happy. It seems to me that Harry is actually making himself unhappy with how much disruption he's causing, whether it's constant court cases, whether it's constant criticism towards the same family that he essentially wants to repair the relationship with. Wouldn't you agree?
No, I don't agree, for the simple reason I am speaking from experience of where your family hasn't always been there for you. And I think what nobody has picked up on, I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not trained, I'm just saying from experience, Harry was deeply unhappy and needed reassurance and support, and he did not get it. And going back, and when Meghan reckoned that asking for help and it was not given, it was left with Harry in the same way. He was not given it. He was only a child when his mother died. And then after that, turn around to be pally-pally and polite and sociable and loving and caring and respectful to the woman that everybody knows the story of how she was involved into it. And I feel sorry for Harry, and I think people need to look a lot more into what the issues are with
Joyce,
Harry.
thank you very much. So Joyce feels a lot of compassion for Harry, and Siobhan, she's not alone, is she? We all felt a tremendous amount of compassion for him originally, especially when he lost his mother and was made to walk behind the coffin. No one can ever erase that picture of that poor 13-year-old boy actually riven with grief, can we? So I think there was a tremendous amount of love for Harry in this country originally.
But now it's sorry to interrupt. Now it's like, if you have an issue with your family, the last thing I'm going to be doing is monetizing that and speaking in front of the media and essentially putting my family down. If there are issues and grievances he has with his family, doing it in a way that's making money, whether it's books and interviews, is not the way to go about it. I don't know about any of you, but if someone had an issue with you, you'd rather them come to you in private and say, let's repair this as a family, instead of lauding it into different columns and essentially in the media.
I mean, I totally agree with you. Yes, I would
agree.
much rather. You're right.
I think least said, soon is mended.
Yeah, but he's not doing least said. He's doing most
He's not
said,
doing
isn't
it.
he?
But I do agree with Joyce a little bit in that I don't think any of us realised how much the death of his mother affected him until very recently. I mean, his anger at the press in general, his complete obsession with going to court over privacy, over, you know, what we've written about him, about it. I mean, he really, really is quite damaged. You can see that.
I think so too, and I also think, you know, if you're happy, you go and be happy.
Yeah.
You know, you've got your lovely wife that you love, your two beautiful children, this magnificent mansion with 16 bathrooms. You know, you don't have to go and cut ribbons and do Morris dancing with school children in you know, parts of this country. You're there, you know, living the life you said you wanted to live. So it seems quite clear he's not happy, because if he was happy, they'd just enjoy it, wouldn't they?
And they would essentially, they keep on asking for privacy. Everybody knows, especially him growing up, with the amount of advice that he could receive, that you can't tailor the media and pick and choose what they report on, what they talk on, what people talk on. So I essentially feel that they're fueling the fire where they're upset about, you know, the media, like you say, what we write about them. Well, then if you want your privacy, you can't keep on releasing various things and pick and choose what you want. Disappear and let us not know anything about what's going on, you know?
Yeah,
They've chosen the very opposite thing. They've chosen
Exactly.
the Netflix deal. They've chosen, she's on her second podcast. She's also guest on other podcasts.
Not much
You've got a
privacy.
product range. They are all over the place every single minute.